Hey everybody, this is Erica from In the Company of Cards. If you're new, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Um, Thank you to everybody who showed up yesterday for the live that I did. If you don't know, I did a bunch of free readings yesterday, just, to be nice. And people came with their questions. Everyone was interesting. The questions were, I would say, 99% personal, and that was fine because I opened it up for that. Um, so today's Monday, and Monday is the day of the week that I usually let you know what I have as offerings. And of course, readings are one of those things. If you shoot me an email, uh, you can send it to in the company of cards at gmail.com or Lenormand with Erica at gmail.com. And if you send me an email, we can get you a personal reading. They are an hour or half an hour in length. So there's that. Monday's the day that I remind you that what I do is I use Lenormand. Sometimes I use tarot, but mostly Lenormand, which is a 36 card European divination system. And I look at politics and culture and race and all kinds of stuff. Um, if you like my deck, you can get a copy of it at La Panthère Studio, like the Panther, La Panthère Studio. And if you want to learn how to read the system, I wrote a book, and it's called The Language of Lenormand, or Lenormand, however you want to pronounce it. Wherever books are sold, this is also available in the audio version and the Kindle version and all of that. And there also is a French edition called Découvrez le langage secret du Lenormand. So if you want to read it in French, you could do that. Um, I have a self-taught course that you can purchase, which is a bunch of videos that I put up, and you can sort of watch them in your own time and learn Lenormand that way. Again, if you click the button under each of my videos, you can see the links to all of that. Where it says more, just click the button and it will take you to all of the places to access the deck, the course, the book. I am also planning to, something popped up on my screen there. I'm also planning to put up a live course that will go, probably it'll start in the middle of September, probably for 5 weeks. And I will give the details out on that when the time comes. That will be um, live with me. It'll be 2 hours in length per session. And I will probably put up a Facebook group so that people can practice. Um, uh, and I will probably have do it through Zoom. And that means that I'll be able to do breakout rooms so that you can work in small groups with me sort of hovering there, giving you, you know, real-time advice in the moment. So look for that if you'd rather work with me personally. Uh, that course will go up in the middle of September. We'll start the middle of September. It'll go up before that, right? So that everybody can um, find the link and purchase it. So I'm working on that right now. So those are my Monday announcements. I want to look at a couple of issues today. One of them is well, they're all kind of timely issues. The first one has to do with, of course, the state of Maine. We know that Graham Plattner, who is the uh, oyster farmer, was won his primary. We know that Janet Mills, who is the current governor of Maine, dropped out of the race. She would be the oldest She's old. So she dropped out of the Senate race. But now we have a situation, you know, these men, as Desdemona says in Shakespeare's play Othello, these men, Graham Plattner, the oyster farmer, has yet again been called out for, uh, well, ill-advised behavior, we'll just say, the worst kind, if you get my drift. Misconduct, we'll call it. And so, again, this is not the first time. He swore up and down that the other allegations were, that was the end of it. There weren't going to be any more. And yet here we are, another one. This one stems from 2019, I think. And the person who came forward, the woman, said that she had been very conflicted about whether or not to come forward because while he did do what he did do, uh, A, she agrees with his politics, which are progressive, and B, she cut him some slack. Apparently, he had been inebriated at the time, and he also had suffered from PTSD from his military experience, I guess. I don't know why women give men these excuses, but at any rate, she was prevailed upon by somebody and came forward with this very, very serious, ugly allegation that you can read about in the news or watch on TV or whatever. Plattner then came out and made a statement. He looked serious and sober. Well, that no pun intended. He looked serious, and he basically said, this was a serious allegation. He said it wasn't true, whatever. And he also said that he was going to be taking some time to decide what the plan should be moving forward. And he said it in a way that impressed me as being, as sort of hinting that he would drop out. And other uh, commentators have said the same thing, that it looked like he was sort of veering in that direction. So I guess the first order of business will be to look at whether he will drop out. He has some time. There is a deadline that I think is coming up. I think it's this month. If he were going to drop out, um, and then we can, depending on what we see, we can look at a couple of other things around that. So I'm going to use he's got a beard. His beard's got white in it. I'm going to use the older man that you see up there on my wall. I'm going to use the older man for him, for Graham Plattner, and I just want to know what what he will decide, whether he will stay or whether he will go. Okay. All right. Oh, there he is. Popped right up. Now, because he popped up as the second card that I turned over, it means he won't be the center card, or what we call the focus card. So the focus card will be, whatever I pull up next. So he is the second card. The first card goes in front of him. He's the second. And then I just pull the rest. Okay. So we have the stork, we have Graham Plattner, we have the cross in the middle, the whip, and the rider. It seems clear to me because of the cross that Plattner believes it would be better for him to end his campaign. Um, you know, Otherwise the heat that he would take would be ridiculous. I mean, here we are in the Me Too e-files days, and this guy would stay in. Come on. He needs to go the way of Swalwell. Maybe they can find each other in a meeting for, you know, frequent offenders. But anyway, the message that he will both get from the party and from his own conscience will be that it will be better. That's the message. It would be better for him to leave. So, assuming that he will either on or before the deadline leave, I want to look at Janet Mills. Now, why am I looking at her when she dropped out? Well, first of all, I like her because you probably, maybe you remember, maybe you don't, but there was a point at which the felon was, there was a governor's meeting and she was there, and the felon was mad about something that Maine wouldn't do in terms of kowtowing to him. And so he said, the room was crowded, and he said, "Is the governor of Maine here?" She said, "I'm right here." And she said, and she really spoke truth to power, like the Mainer that she was. She was just such a tough, bold broad. And I was really impressed with that. But the fact of the matter is, when Graham Plattner came along with his more progressive platform, she did bow out. Nevertheless, she missed the deadline to have her name taken off the ballot. This was for the Senate race. So, for the primary. So in the primary, her name was on there, even though she dropped out, and she still won 20% of the vote. So, I don't know. Are they going to just pick some Johnny come lately from who knows where that nobody knows anything about and that nobody voted for, and put him, probably a him, in Plattner's place? Or will Janet Mills step in and again be then the oldest? Will she be the oldest senator? I don't know, because we got some old senators. She's old though. So I'm going to look for Janet Plattner. We're going to use the older woman for her. And will she be the one that they choose? And how will that? Well, I just want to look at that. Will they choose her? Okay, that's the first thing I want to look at. Janet Mills, the current governor of Maine. Will she be put in the race in place of Graham Plattner, who it looks like will drop out? So we're looking for the older woman that will stand for Janet Mills. We have the rider, we have the house, we have Janet Mills, we have the tree, and we have the heart. She is very well liked in Maine, and I think that if she were to express the interest, she would be the one they would go with. Yes. So then we have to look and see, well, how will Janet Plattner, forgive me, Janet Mills, who would be put in place of Graham Plattner, how would she do in the race in November? So I don't know who the Republican is, but my magic rectangle knows, right? Um, so let's look. Republican candidate, well, so we'll say Senate candidate from Maine. Um, so who are the candidates? Oh, for crying out loud. Well, whatever. Oh, for God's sake, why am I? You know what? I just had a little senior moment. Of course, I know who the candidate is. It's Susan Collins. And Susan Collins, she's the one who's like, she always supports the felon, and then he'll do his dirt, and then she'll say, I'm shocked, shocked. I think she's got Parkinson's, so her head shakes a little bit. I'm shocked, shocked. She's perpetually shocked. Now, the thing is that Maine keeps sending her back to the Senate. Now, why is that? Because while on the national stage, she's just seems like dizzy uh, and just co-opted by the felon, even though she wants you to think it's reluctant. At the same time, she brings home a lot of pork to her state. So her state gets perks. She makes sure of that. So of course, Maine likes her, you know. Uh, so the question is, that's interesting because she's a senator who looks out for her state. Uh, but so is Janet Mills as the governor. She's a very well-liked governor. So I think what I will do is I will pull five cards. Five cards for Susan Collins, five cards for Janet Mills. And we will see who looks better in the November race. Okay. Can't believe couldn't remember Susan Collins. Okay. Okay. So this will be S- S- Susan Collins. And this will be Janet Mills, whom I think will be her opponent. Okay. You know, somebody asked me, they sent me a message saying about the video that I did yesterday where I did the live readings. I like it when you tilt the thing down so I can see the whole um the cards on the table. Well, I'm sure you do, but as I thought I explained yesterday, when I do those lives, I'm on a different platform. And for me to tilt the thing down, you won't be able to see the whole screen. It cuts it off. That's why I held the cards up. So you know what? You get what you get. I'm doing the best that I can as I see fit. So if that's not sufficient, there are others who I'm sure would find a way, but I'm not the one. All right, Susan Collins. Clover, house, scythe, bouquet, and bear. I mean, gotta say, she is she goes back and back and back and back to the Senate. They keep sending her back. This is Clover. She's been lucky. I can mirror Clover with the bear. And the bear, think of it as, I'm a boss. The Senate is my territory. Because it is. I mean, it has been. Um, this is her house. She deserves to keep it. What's very interesting is the card in the middle, which is the scythe. And the scythe is curved. It's a blade that cuts, but it's also curved, which means sometimes it gathers in and sometimes it cuts. Because you can scoop up the wheat in the curve of the blade. Mainers do like her. They keep sending her back, but she also is attached to you know who. And, Maine doesn't like that, which is why Plattner, with his progressive um, platform, was so popular. This could be that she gets cut off from what she thinks is her due. Now, let's look at Janet Mills. We have the moon, the tree, the fox, the garden, and the letter. I'll tell you what, this is a very even matchup. Janet Mills, of course, as the governor of the state, is as well known as Susan Collins is, the senator from the state. She is well known. She's done a good job for a long time, according to the people. And she, again, she stood up to the felon in a way that Collins has never been known to do. And we need a little fire meeting fire. Now, the reason that I'm going to give the election to Mills is that Collins has the scythe, and I do think that this is a cuts her off. And Mills has as their last card the letter. This is the card for votes. I mean, to pull out of the race because, this relatively young upstart oyster farmer comes along with his more progressive platform. I mean, you can see why she said, okay, every dog has their day, and I guess I've had mine, and let me step back and let the next generation take over. She's still got 20% of the vote. I think she could stand a very good chance. So if you are from Maine and you would prefer Mills over Collins, you know what to do because I think that will be what the race is. I think Plattner will be out, and I think it will be, they won't put a young, new upstart in there. I think it'll be Mills versus Collins. And I think that um, Mills will win. Now, it's way early. We are in July. The election is not till November. I will look at this again, but suffice it to say that Mills stands a very good chance. And suffice it to say that my cards indicate Plattner will step down or be removed. Okay. Okay. Um, so here's another one. And these two both have to do with the felon. So the first is that, the felon made billions through allegedly, and for entertainment purposes only, insider trading. I mean, how is it not insider trading? He and his family have made billions of dollars. Part of the insider trading, of course, has to do with crypto. Now, I said this months and months ago. I talked about crypto and the felon. And somebody wrote me a whole long email or message, comment about the fact that I didn't know what I was talking about when I talked about crypto, which, listen, granted, I am not a crypto expert, but here's what I know. Here's what I know. I know that if I give you a bag of Chuck E. Cheese tokens, slugs, as it were, and you pay me $100 for that bag of Chuck E. Cheese tokens, the only place I can use those tokens is Chuck E. Cheese. So if I leave Chuck E. Cheese and I go next door to the grocery store and I try to pay with my Chuck E. Cheese tokens for $100 worth of groceries, they're going to call the cops on me. Which is to say, people paid, their people, supporters of the felon, just like they bought his wine and his shoes and his Bibles and his courses and his watches and realized the error of their ways. People bought his crypto. And the fact of the matter is, according to the records, he and his family have made billions, and those supporters who bought the crypto have lost millions. Why millions? Because millions probably were all they had to lose in the first place, to invest. But they lost money, he made money. So when I give you my Chuck E. Cheese token example, where's the lie? So here's what I want to know. Will this gross breach in the law be addressed in some way? Now, here's what I mean by that. You know, prior to the felon, presidents did not um, trade on the market, crypto or the regular stock market. They held their money in a blind trust with advisors who did the trading for them, and there was no conversation or discussion between whoever was handling that money and the president because it was seen as a conflict of interest. Now, why was it seen as a conflict of interest? Well, because it obviously would be, and because as so much of the way things are done in Washington, there was a gentleman's agreement. It was sort of understood. So, in other words, there's not really anything completely codifying um, such conduct as, irregular or illegal, which means the felon, I mean, theoretically, he could get away with it, keep the billions, and everybody else would be out the money that they invested. So I would suspect, I mean, not being one of those poor suckers who bought into that, but I would expect that they feel uh, pretty bad about that, pretty angry about that. And I think that they are people who, some of them, it was their life savings. Others would be people of means and they wanted to be sycophants. And so they bought into whatever the felon told them to buy. So I think it runs the gamut of who lost money. Um, I am sure that the rules will be codified and made more um, direct and specific and hard and fast once the felon is gone. But I just want to know if this will speed him on his way, meaning, a lot of us who do this work have not seen him fulfilling his term. And it has been unclear universally to us how that how that is possible. In other words, would it be that he shuffles off the mortal coil, or does he get 25th Amendment? I don't think that will happen. Or option number three, which I have floated more than once, and option number three would be they go to him and they say, this insider trading thing looks bad. I mean, this is not just impeachment worthy, it's jail worthy. I mean, I don't think it's going to wash for you to say, like Nixon did, and like the Supreme Court did, uh, I could do anything. If the president does it, it's not illegal. Remember, that's what Nixon said. Um, so I can imagine people going to him and saying, you got to go. It's time. And you can use whatever excuse you'd like. So you could call it your health. You could say what they all say, I want to spend more time with my family. You could say, I want to spend more time on the golf course. Or you could do something that would sound a little more authentic, right? You could say something like, you know, I'm sick of this. This is boring. Uh, I'm not finding this fun anymore. And so, you know, see ya and walk off into the sunset. And in return, keep your billions. We are now wiser than we were before, and we will put laws in place so this can never happen again. So thank you very much for the lesson. And you go your way, we'll go our way. I mean, that could happen. So what I'm asking is this latest news, which just came out today, and the felon, his theory was, well, this is something I'm good at. I'm just good at making money. And my kids, he still calls them his kids, my kids, um, what are they supposed to do? I'm the president, which means that, everything I touch is gold. And so when they invest in something, because I'm the president and I set the price of whatever it is, they're going to make money. What are you going to do? They have to live their lives. That's basically what he said. I mean, there is no more corrupt politician that I can think of. Okay. You do notice my drink is color coordinated with my shirt. Anyway, I want to know whether this latest financial just obscenity um, will be the thing that ushers him out early. So I'm going to let Spirit pull all the cards and we'll see what we get. We have the fish, we have the bouquet, we have the ring, we have the coffin, we have the young woman. And, let me say, this is always and ever the e-files. So the fish is about money. So Spirit knows what we're talking about. Spirit's on the same page with us in terms of identifying what the topic is. And he has made out like a bandit. This is a card for, you know, receiving gifts. And you saw that ring. There was a ring that some country gave him that, I mean, I don't even know how many millions it's worth that they gave it to him because um, he lowered the tariffs, he eased the tariffs on them. So they gave him this incredibly expensive fancy ring. So he has been rewarded with money and goods and all kinds of things, and the people's money. I mean, he has taken a ton of stuff, and this is what he knows how to do. I mean, again, do I need to bring up the steaks and the courses and the shoes and the Bibles? I mean, this is what he does over and over and over again. I think the fact that this is such a blatant insider trading thing, allegedly, this could mean the end of him, coupled with what is yet to come out in the e-files, because we've only just gotten started with those. So don't be surprised if this happens, if that's the way he ends up leaving sooner rather than later. Because I don't see him fulfilling his whole term. And it could be because of this. But there are many roads that lead to Rome. So here's another road that I want to look at finally, which is that the felon is on his way tonight to the country of Turkey. He's going to Turkey because the NATO meeting is there. And, he is going in, it's a long trip, as you can imagine, right, from Washington to Turkey. You know that he's not going to wear compression socks, which he should be wearing on that long flight, given his venous insufficiency and everything else. Um, he is certainly not walking into a warm welcome. In fact, prior to even leaving for the trip, he asked for a restraining order. Can you imagine? Against Georgia Maloney, the the prime minister of Italy. He's had a beef with her. A restraining order? What does he think? Is she gonna like spear him with her high heel? I don't get it. And again, Italy was one of his big allies. Georgia Maloney is a far right person, but there is no love lost between her and the felon. I don't think it extends to that he needed a restraining order. It's just you know, a crappy move on his part. But anyway, it's a long flight there and a long flight back and an unpleasant experience during. So I just want to look at how his trip to Turkey will go. And when I say trip, I mean all of it. I mean, um, how will the flights be? I mean, and that's like a health thing. I mean, how will he, you know, how will it be when he gets there? Although I don't really need cards from that for that. I'm sure that he will be cold-shouldered. I'm sure he will be laughed at. Um, I'm really more interested. Yeah, but we can predict that part. I mean, we all could predict that without cards. I'm more interested actually in the flights and the hotel stays and how he or wherever he's staying and how his physical health will fare. So I think I'm going to use the ship. Even though I want to know about his health, I want to know about the trip, his health on the trip. So I'm using the ship, and that will stand for the trip. Spirit knows that what I'm really asking is about his health during the trip. Okay. Okay, so here's the trip to Turkey that he's on even as we speak. Okay. So we have the coffin, we have the clouds, we have the ship, we have the garden, and we have the birds. So, I mean, a coffin is a coffin is a coffin, is it not? I think that there is already talk, birds, about how he looks like he's got one foot in the grave. And so we have the coffin and then the clouds. So his health is just not good. I mean, that's a fact. And it will not be improved by taking a God knows how many hours long trip to Turkey, even if it is on his, fancy Qatari refitted plane. Um, his health is not good, and it will not be improved by this trip. We have the ship in the center that stands for the trip. Fourth card is the garden, and I can mirror the garden with the clouds. I think it will be very clear to everyone, and by when I say everyone, I mean um, the world leaders who meet him there for this NATO meeting, for the public, both here and in Turkey and in the other countries, observing this meeting, that he is, what is the medical term? Non-compos mentis, not well. It'll be very clear. So I pulled clarifiers on some of these. I pulled clarifiers on the ship that stands for the trip, and we have the rider, the house, and the bouquet. Of course, the messaging from the White House will be, they're lucky to have him there. He is a gift to the assemblage. That, that, that's just whatever. That's propaganda. I pulled cards on the garden. The garden is the people, the public, everybody who is observing this trip or has some skin in the game around this trip. And the clarifiers are child, letter, and woman. And I think he will appear just out of his depth, just not with the program, not knowing what's going on. The child card, it's like somebody who's naive, somebody who's just not reading the fine print, somebody who, you know how he is. He talks in these big, broad strokes, and he never read a book in his life. And let me tell you, um, e-files. There will be all kinds of references to them. There are countries that are really trying to bring people to justice. The UK is trying, France is trying. Apparently, in his haste, Todd Blanche released do you remember the Russian P tapes? Well, apparently they were released. So that's a quite a awkward thing. Um, the e-files are never far from him. Uh, and then the fifth card is birds. Birds is like gossip, talking. And I think that the members of NATO will circle the wagons, meaning that he will be on the outside. Uh, and you've seen that already, right? When they will kind of cluster in groups, whether it's EU, NATO, whatever, they'll cluster in groups. And he's just left standing there because, nobody wants to play with him, nobody wants to talk to him, none of that. And they will be talking in their little cliques, we'll call them cliques, about what a slimy guy he is. And also, what a lightweight. What a loser. What a lightweight. That's what they're going to be saying. Now, I will say this, it's going to be a short visit. Clover dictates that. I mean, nobody's going to be wanting to have coffee with him after the main event or anything. They might make plans with each other, but not with him. So it'll be a short visit. But I think it'll be even shorter because of his health. So I can't promise anything. I can't guarantee anything, but I mean, I will say, does this card mean anything to you? I'm not saying the ultimate will happen, this comes for all of us in the end, does it not? And I will say that he's no exception, and that this trip will be arduous for him, despite the luxury of the accommodations and all that. So it could be he could come home early because I don't think he's meant to be there long anyway. But I still think he'll be there and then leave. Like, and his health will suffer for it. Too bad, right? All right, I think that will be it. I want to remind you that tomorrow, being Tuesday, you can find me over on Substack. I would love it if you would subscribe over there. I hope you're subscribed here, but please go subscribe to me over there. If you look for my name, Erica Robinson, you can find me. Um, it's also in the company of cards. And that's where I write, and I write every Tuesday, and I use Lenormand, and I use tarot, and I use an African oracle called the Adinkra. And what I do is I leave space, I give space for these three oracles to have a conversation with each other and then with me. And I'm kind of like the scribe. I just write down what they tell me. Um, to read anything over there of mine is free, although I would love it if you'd be a paid subscriber. No pressure there. It's free. Uh, but that's where I'll be tomorrow. I want to remind you that Wednesday, I will be with Lena from Lena Down Under. If you don't know her, you should. That's her YouTube channel. She's an Australian, and we do a little series that we've been doing for a while now. It's called Worldview 360, and we look at world events and culture from our different perspectives. Um, you know, she being on the other side of the world from me. And it's a good conversation. It is alive, so you can put comments and things in the feed. And I just want to, as a caveat, say we do not use cards. If you want to see me use cards, I use cards all the rest of the time. She uses cards on her channel. But this is just two seers, two diviners, two wise women who are modeling how to have civil conversations about tough subjects. So that will be tomorrow at 6 Pacific, which is 9 Eastern. And if you're elsewhere, you can figure that out. And it will be alive, so look for the notification to pop up, and I hope to see you there. Okay, everybody, have a great Monday evening, and I will see you on Substack tomorrow, and I will see you tomorrow, Wednesday night, with Lena on right here. Okay, take care.